Okay, so today's video doesn't directly relate to Canada. Well, it kind of does in a sense, especially when I keep seeing comments from people saying, I'm not going to go back for the next 3 years. I've always said the same thing. Even when Trump is out of the office, I'm not going to go back. But lately, Steve Bannon's interview has been making the rounds on social media. And with how things are going in 2025, I wouldn't be surprised if Trump manages to weasel himself in for a third term. And if that does happen, does that mean Obama can try again too? Before we dive in, today's backdrop was sent from Gabby, who took this photo from Muskoka Cottage Country in Ontario. Did I pronounce that right? I love these kind of photos, anything by the lake or the ocean that really captures the calm side of Canada. So thanks for sending this over, Gabby. Before we start, I found this image on Reddit. Apparently, whatever timeline we're in now, Toronto is in Quebec. To the guy at ABC who made this image, come on, man, you had one job, and we have Google and the internet to help you. All right, let's get into the Steve Bannon interview.
He's going to get a third term. So Trump 28, Trump is going to be president 28, and people just ought to get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd Amendment?
There's many different alternatives. At the appropriate time, we'll lay out what the plan is, but there's a plan. We had longer odds in 16 and longer odds in 24 than we got in 28. And President Trump will be the president of the United States, and the country needs him to be president of the United States. We have to finish what we started.
Now, I'm not an expert on US politics, but didn't Steve Bannon get fired by the Supreme Orange Lord Trump during his first term? If that's the case, why is he still acting like Trump's biggest cheerleader? I really don't get it. What actually worries me is the tone coming from Bannon, because the MAGA crowd will eat this stuff up. They'll take every word he says as gospel. And that's exactly how ridiculous ideas start to gain traction. And you know Trump. He'll take full advantage of it and say, see, this is what the people want.
Trump is a vehicle. I know this will drive you guys crazy, but he's a vehicle of divine providence. He's an instrument. He's very imperfect. He's not churchy, not particularly religious, but he's an instrument of divine will. And you can tell this of how he's pulled this off. We need him for at least one more term, right? And he'll get that in 28.
You're not driving me crazy. I'm trying to understand the coherence of the things you've just told me. On the one hand, you've said the Constitution is fit for purpose. Secondly, you've said that President Trump needs another term, even though the 22nd Amendment makes pretty clear that he cannot have another term.
Why does it make that clear?
Because he's on his second term already.
At some point in time, we will make sure we go through, Zanny, and define all those terms.
But you will be undermining the spirit of that amendment, even if you find some way around it.
If the American people, with the mechanisms we have, put Trump back in office, are the American people tearing up the Constitution? Would that be tearing up?
Well,
would the American people be going against the spirit of the Constitution, ma'am?
This is exactly why any laws in the United States right now, whether state level or federal, or even in the Constitution, mean absolutely nothing today. Because the rules aren't respected by the Trump administration or by his cheerleaders like Steve Bannon. What's the point of having laws if the people in power don't follow them? Let me paint this picture for you. Let's just say the third term idea actually gains momentum, and somehow there's a backdoor to keep Trump in office, maybe through martial law or some other loophole. I don't know, I just don't know how it works. But imagine it does. Trump then starts his third term as president. Now, I'm sorry, for any Canadians thinking, well, I'll just wait 3 more years before going back to the US. That's not even a guarantee anymore. Because what if he's still there? And even if he's gone, let's see which one of the 77 million people who supported him decides to take his place. Well, I have a movie for you guys to watch. It's called Civil War, and it came out in 2024. The cast included Kirsten Dunst and Nick Offerman, who plays the president. Now, without spoiling anything, the movie follows a reporter covering the Civil War in the United States, a war that started because the president decided to stay in office for a third term. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Check out the movie if you have time.
I think yes, actually, because I think what you will end up with is a populist justification for a quasi-dictatorship.
That's not true at all.
That's what it sounds like.
It's not. Trump is a dictatorship. Did you just see the compromises he had to make on the big, beautiful bill? You see the compromises he has to do on everything, on accommodating Zelensky, on what President Trump. President Trump is nothing but a series of negotiations to kind of keep this thing rolling forward, where he's having trade-offs all the time.
Steve, you've just spent the last 20 minutes telling me we have to smash the other side. There's no room for debate. There's no room for compromise. We must smash them. And now you're telling me this is a negotiation. I mean, that's
no.
I guess that's why it seems to me some kind of tension there.
First off, the only way President Trump wins in 2028 and continues to stay in office is by the will of the American people. okay? And the will of the American people is what the Constitution embodies. And so I think we're going to be in good hands there. We need to finish what we started.
In a sense, he's actually right. The will of the American people, mainly the far right, will be the ones to feel the idea for Trump's third term. And like I mentioned earlier, Trump and his administration will twist it into an excuse. They'll say, oh, the people wanted this. It wasn't me. They wanted it. And that's exactly why I think there needs to be a lot more pushback from the US citizens themselves to stop this before it ever becomes real. Now, the question that we're all wondering, can this actually happen? Let's check with ABC News on that. You know, the same network that thinks Toronto is in Quebec.
Legal scholars are raising concerns after President Trump said he's considering a third term. The 22nd Amendment explicitly limits a president to 2 elected terms, or 10 years, saying, quote, no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice, and no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of the president more than once. For more on that, let's bring in ABC contributor Kim Whaley, legal expert and professor at the University of Baltimore Law School. So, Kim, that was a lot of words that I just read, but break this down. Is there any wiggle room in here, in the language you see in the Constitution, for President Trump to seek a third term?
Well, Diane, there's always wiggle room for creative lawyers. And I think the argument is that the word elected to 2 terms maximum means literally elected, not served. So the argument he's saying is that he can serve more than 2 terms, so long as he's not elected at the top of the ticket. For example, if he is elected as a vice president, J.D. Vance as president could resign and he could move to the position of president. That's not being elected. The problem with that is the 12th Amendment says specifically that if someone's ineligible to be president, they cannot be a vice president. But at the end of the day, this doesn't really hinge on what the Constitution says. It's more on, you know, if the Republican Party decides to put him on the ballot on a state-by-state basis, who's going to stop that process?
Anything is possible when you don't follow the law. And the United States already isn't following its own laws. Just look at ICE agents roaming around. No due process for people who are arrested or detained. And they break almost every single rule when it comes to identifying themselves or where they're even allowed to go. On the tariff side of things, I remember reading somewhere that Trump doesn't actually have the power to issue tariffs on his own. That authority is supposed to come through Congress or the Supreme Court. I could be wrong on this, but somebody correct me if I am. I just remember kind of reading it somewhere. But my point is, the person being interviewed said that Trump wouldn't be eligible as vice president because he's already been the president. But who's going to stop him? I have no clue. He's got every branch of government under his wing, but it's definitely something that the sane US citizens need to start thinking about.
There's no mechanism if Donald Trump is willing to push the boundaries of the Constitution. If the Republican Party doesn't come in and stop him, I think this is this is feasible. This could actually happen.
Now, many Trump allies, including Steve Bannon, have pointed to the Constitution not using the word consecutive when defining presidential terms. Is that a loophole?
You know, I think that's a pretty weak argument. I mean, it doesn't say anything about it having to be consecutive terms. And if you think about it as well from an originalist standpoint, right, a conservative standpoint, and you think about why do we even have the 22nd Amendment? It was because Franklin Delano Roosevelt served 4 terms in office or was elected 4 times, and people from both parties didn't like that idea. There had been many attempts since the founding of the Constitution to put a cap on presidential terms, and they did that in 1951.
Now, just a few minutes ago, I asked Republican Congressman David Kustoff if he would support Trump serving a 3rd term. He didn't say yes, but he also didn't say no. What happens if the president tries any of these tactics?
Well, that interview I heard, and I think it's good news that he believes it would take a constitutional amendment to allow that. But if he got on the ballot, I don't know that the Supreme Court would kick him off. We saw this in the last election. I believe Section 3 of the 14th Amendment made him ineligible because of January 2021 and the insurrection. But the Supreme Court said, you know, we're not going to stop the Republican Party from choosing who they want to be at the top of the ticket. So with lots of things that are happening with Donald Trump, the question is who is going to stand in the way of what sounds like an extra constitutional agenda here?
Exactly. We can't count on anyone on the right side to tell Trump, hey, you need to follow the law and the rules. And I really don't think the Supreme Court is going to step in either. The fact that they already talked about this being planned, not even a year into Trump's second term, is what makes this whole thing a bit concerning. They have 3 years to plan this out, line everything up, and get the right people in place to turn a blind eye to the law. I really do worry for the US on this, and it's exactly why I keep saying things are not going to be normal after 3 years. So if any Canadians are thinking, oh, we'll just wait a few years, head back to Florida Disneyland after he's gone, you might want to put that thought on hold for a little bit. Now let's hear from some people who know more about this topic than I do.
Look, I need people to hear me on this. You don't build a ballroom if you're planning on leaving. Anybody that really thinks that Donald Trump is going to willingly give up power in 2028 is not paying attention. There are 3 main facts right now that'll scare the crap out of you about Donald Trump's plans to stay in power, because it scares the crap out of me. Number 1, Steve Bannon, senior advisor to Donald Trump from outside the White House, says they have a plan being worked on behind the scenes for him to run for a 3rd term. It's very sophisticated. They're planning it out, they're funding it, and they're going to have it ready to go. This is coming from someone who knows Trump. Number 2, the Trump administration is currently forming a National Guard response force that will be trained in crowd control and civil unrest, ready to deploy to all 50 states, coincidentally, by 2026. Now we're learning that the Trump admin is sending poll watchers to 2 blue states, no red states, for their elections in 2025 in New Jersey and California. And representatives in these states have called it highly inappropriate. Donald Trump and his buddies know they're going to lose in 2026. So it's obvious now that they're making plans to basically claim that it was fake, it was fraud, and Donald Trump actually won. And they're going to use the FBI, the DOJ, and all these different agencies to do it. People got to wake up and realize that this is the reality.
I actually thought about his ballroom comment at the beginning of the video. Like, once Trump is gone, what's the next president going to do with it? Are they going to tear down a $250 million ballroom? Are they going to leave it empty? I kind of agree with Harry on this one, though. The ballroom isn't some short-term 3-year project. It was meant for long-term. But I'm not going to get into that too much. I personally feel I have no right to speculate, especially being a Canadian. Maybe Josh will bring this up on his channel in one of his future videos. What I can say from our side of the fence is that things are not going to magically go back to normal. There's generational damage that has been done in the past 9 months. There have been times where I thought maybe once things calm down, maybe like 4, 5, 6 years down the road, it would be nice to go visit some of my friends in the US. But that thought disappears quickly when reports like this start coming out. Now, if you're still watching this video, I wanted to end this video on a positive note for Canada and show you this video from Nicholas. I was actually really happy to see this report from him.
So European companies continue to make Canada their home for their North American operations. So Andriani, the Italian food giant, is actually starting its first plant in North America in London, Ontario. It'll be open within the next month. It'll be employing about 150 jobs initially. But this just goes to show that Canada is an excellent place for head offices and also European facilities in North America. Canada is the gateway to North America. Folks, the source for this is Canadian Manufacturing. My name is Nick. Let me know what you think about this in the comments.
This is excellent news to hear. A lot of companies overseas would probably have gone to the US to set up their North American headquarters. But with everything that's going on right now, Canada has become their safer bet. And with that comes new jobs and more revenue for Canada. I've got a feeling we're going to see a lot more of this in the future. Just imagine if Hyundai decided to open a plant in Canada. And if the EV tariffs on China were lifted, on the condition that a plant gets built here to create jobs and grow our economy. That would be the biggest in your face to Trump. And I really hope we start seeing more stories like this. Major international companies choosing Canada over the United States. If you found this video helpful, hit the like and subscribe button to help get this message out to more people. And share it with your friends as well. And if you're still here and you want to see more of my videos, check out the ones that are showing up on your screen now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.